Hi Year 9, this is part 2 of the balancing equations tutorials for today's lesson, and in this one we're going to be looking at an intermediate level sort of question that you might come across. For this one we're looking at iron, which is our Fe, plus oxygen, which is going to give us iron oxide, which is our product there. So with any sort of balancing equations question, first thing we need to do is set out our grid that we can use to count the number of atoms. So we'll draw our grid first, and then we write down the symbols of the elements on each side. So we've got iron and oxygen only. Now if you remember back to the beginner's video, our main rule that we need to follow is that we need to balance the oxygens first when we're doing these equations. So first thing we're going to do, we'll count the number of atoms on each side. So iron at the minute here, because there's no number next to it, that means that there is only one of them. So we put one there, and as we can see for the oxygen, it's got the formula O2, so that means that there's 2 atoms involved there. And on the product side, we've got 2 iron atoms and 3 oxygen atoms. Okay, so our first thing that we need to do is balance the oxygens. Now this isn't quite as straightforward as the earlier example in the beginner's video. A little trick that I like to use when you're doing this, because we've got 3 on the product side and only 2 on the reactant side, we can't double this amount, otherwise it's still going to give us a problem where they're not the same amount. So the easiest thing to do is find the lowest common multiple of both numbers. So the easy way to do that is just go up the times tables for them until you reach the first number that's the same. So in the 2 times tables, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. In the 3 times table, we've got 3, 6, 9, 12 and then 15. So you can see there that the earliest number for both of them, so the lowest common multiple, is going to be 6. Okay, so what we need to do is times our current number of atoms by a number to reach 6. So for the oxygen, what we need to do there is multiply that by 3, and that will give us 6. So the way we do that, we stick a 3 in front of the oxygen on the reactant side. For our molecule or compound that contains oxygen on the product side, we need to times that by 2 to get to 6. So what we do, we put a 2 in front of the whole molecule. Remember, you can't put 2 just in front of the oxygen, it's got to be in front of the whole molecule, and we can't change our small numbers either. Okay, so if we get ourselves into a position where we've got this cleaned off in a second, then we'll go for our next step. Okay, so our next step then, because we've changed some of the numbers that are before the actual elements and compounds, so I'll just highlight them so you can see them. We've added the 3 before the oxygen on the reactant side and the 2 in front of the iron oxide. That means that the whole amount of atoms on both sides are going to be changed, so we need to do our counting again. So on this side now, for the reactants, we've still got excuse me, we've still got 1 iron atom, but we've now, instead of only having 2 oxygen atoms, we've got 3 times 2, which is going to give us a total of 6 now. Okay, and then on the other side, if we look at our iron atoms first, we've got 2 lots of iron oxide, and within each iron oxide compound, there are 2 iron atoms. So 2 times 2 is now going to give us a total of 4 iron. And for oxygen, we've got 3 oxygen atoms usually in one molecule of iron oxide, but we've now got 2 lots of it. So that means that we've got to do 2 times 3, which is going to give us 6. Okay, so now this puts us in a position where the oxygens are balanced. That's our first problem out of the way. We now need to balance the ions. Now this is really straightforward. Because the iron is on its own, on the reactant side, we can put any number that we want before there, and the number that we need to balance it is going to be a 4. Okay, and that will change the number of iron atoms from 1 to 4, so that they are both balanced. Okay, so that was an intermediate sort of question that you might get. If you're struggling to understand how to do this, make sure that you grab my attention during the lesson, and I'll go through some other examples with you if you didn't understand this. Thank you.